elephant in the room is that there's grief in the workplace. So far this year, more than 147 million U.S. employees are going to work under a crushing burden of grief. We're mourning the 200,000 people who have already died in the United States from COVID-19, and that number is rising. The deathbeds, the funerals that we've missed during quarantine, the lack of work-life balance, and the loss of whatever you've called a normal lifestyle as well. It's grief upon grief, and this translates into trauma like we haven't seen in modern times. More than half of adults in the United States have seen their mental health worsen due to worry and stress during the pandemic, and 75% of employees are reporting burnout at work. Specifically, 40% are reporting burnout due to the pandemic. So as a leader, you have to care and be aware. Grief impacts your most important asset, your people, as well as your bottom line. But let's face it, dealing with grief is a leadership skill most of us are ill-equipped to deal with. After all, since childhood, we're programmed to stuff our feelings. So this is not easy for most of us because feelings are messy and challenging. If you haven't been trained in emotional intelligence, you may have a hard time because you feel like maybe you shouldn't be emotional in the workplace. It's frowned upon. The old rules of leadership focus on keeping grief and emotions at arm's length. Today, you're going to discover why the opposite approach is more advantageous for you as a leader and how to do it. I'm going to map it out for you with 3 practical suggestions based on leadership capabilities that you need. This is not an all-inclusive list, but a great starting point. Here's what it takes. Number 1 is empathy, but I want to point out that feeling sympathy for someone is feeling sorry for them, feeling pity. And when you pity someone, that actually creates distance. So you want to have empathy, which really, you put yourself in their shoes. It's walking a mile in their shoes. So some of the things that you want to watch out for is that you don't want to telegraph that you know exactly how other people feel, because in reality you don't. So don't assume. You may have an idea, but assuming that you know what they're going through actually diminishes their experience. And you want to avoid the flyby of saying, hey, how you doing? And not waiting for an answer. So what you do want to focus on when it comes to empathy is go above and beyond to check on your teammates and your staff. At every level, find reasons to be personal to reach out to them, whether it's their birthdays or big projects, etc. Connect with them. And also, have authentic curiosity and genuine interest. Use the power of the pause when you do ask someone how they're doing. Actually pause, listen, and wait for the answer. And lead your employees through the sorrow, through the difficulty, and the challenges. So to sum it up with a quote from Brené Brown, an expert in this arena, she said, "Empathy fuels connection, and sympathy drives disconnection." So moving on to number 2, have the courage to be vulnerable. And what I mean by that is that the most courageous leaders can hold space for those who are suffering. They're actually able to sit in the sorrow. If that makes you feel uncomfortable, you're not alone. But I do want to mention that you don't want to show up as stoic and think that that's going to help people. If anything, that creates an environment of isolation. It sends an unwritten message that says, hold it all in and don't talk about your feelings. What you do want to do is you want to be a role model to share your vulnerability professionally. And what that means is sharing publicly so that brings people together. You want to shine the light on the elephant in the room. Relate to your team with stories, but don't make the story just about yourself. Make sure that there's a guiding theme that brings people together around the key values of your company, or that also sends a message of nurturing, that people feel as though they are seen and heard. And remember that there's no right or wrong or good or bad way of processing grief. We all do it at different times and at different stages. And if you think about it, Trust is a product of vulnerability that grows over time and requires work, attention, and full engagement. So let's move on to number 3, realistic hope. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a Jersey girl born and raised, and we don't suffer fools gladly. We can tell when someone is blowing smoke. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to overhype positivity or be overly positive all the time. Don't sugarcoat the trauma or minimize the impact of the losses that people are experiencing. And don't tell people not to worry. What you do want to do is you want to acknowledge and uplift everyone with appropriate measure. Focus on brighter days to come with realism. You want to connect to their needs for security, control, and compassion. And instead of town hall meetings, you want to change the format to resemble a fireside chat with small groups so that your team feels more comfortable to engage. Also, beef up your schedule with one-on-one meetings. People feel more able to open up and talk to you when they're in a private setting and it feels safe. Also, provide resources and updates regularly. This is a time to over-communicate, not under-communicate. At the end of the day, your goal as a leader is to empower your team and build connections. Just as the renowned Stephen Covey defined in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, an emotional bank account is a leader's relationship with others. When an emotional bank account has more deposits than withdrawals, people involved in the relationship will trust each other. Trust creates connection. Connection is the currency of business and relationships. So invest in your relationships and it'll pay dividends for years to come. If you haven't done so already, be sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell down below. That way you'll get all the videos that come out each week. And I also want to invite you as a leader to the Effortless Outcomes Quest, 21 Days to Inner Peace and Prosperity. It's a special program that I've created that's totally complimentary, and you can get all the details in the link below. All you have to do is click the link and put your name and email, and you'll get all the details. I look forward to seeing you there. Bye for now.